começar?
Yes.
Ok. Yes, we are on live.
Hey.
Bom dia, bom dia. Bom dia a todos, todas e todes. Eu sou a Aline Haas, sou professora vinculada ao Departamento de Educação Física e Fisioterapia e Dança da Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul. Com prazer, nós vamos dar continuidade ao Seminário Internacional Dança, Saúde e Arquivos Digitais, realizando a nossa quinta e penúltima palestra desse evento muito especial para nós. O Seminário Internacional Dança, Saúde e Arquivos Digitais é uma disciplina oferecida em conjunto pelos cursos de pós-graduação em Ciências do Movimento Humano e cursos de pós-graduação em Artes Cênicas, organizados por mim, Aline Haas, professora Mônica Dantas e Suzy Weber, minhas queridas colegas que estão nessa empreitada aí ajudando a organizar esse evento. Esse evento envolve o grupo de pesquisa em arte, corpo e educação, o grupo GACI, e o grupo em pesquisa em práticas de formação, criação e documentação em dança e performance. Esse evento ele é uma disciplina, então, né, que nós estamos abrindo também para transmissão no YouTube, mas nós contamos com uma disciplina vinculada a esses dois cursos de pós-graduação, e ela conta, então, vai contar esse evento com 6 pesquisadores internacionais que nos visitaram. Nós estamos na nossa quinta, né, palestra, semana que vem teremos a nossa última, e esses pesquisadores são pesquisadores que vêm tanto do Canadá quanto do Reino Unido, uma referência no campo do conhecimento da dança, da saúde e dos arquivos digitais. E esse evento, então, está sendo realizado, como todas as nossas atividades até o momento, né, no modo remoto. A gente está utilizando a plataforma Zoom e está realizando as transmissões das palestras no YouTube. Nós decidimos realizar esse seminário com os parcos recursos que tínhamos, né, o nosso próprio Zoom, né, o YouTube, que é gratuito, então todas essas plataformas, né, digitais das nossas casas, os nossos alunos, alunas que estão aqui junto conosco, e diante dessa dificuldade foi muito complexo a gente conseguir realizar uma tradução consecutiva em sala virtual, devido à impossibilidade de conseguir recursos financeiros, né, para essa tradução simultânea. Então, assim, optamos em transmitir o evento em inglês, e a gente pede desculpas, né, a gente sabe que isso pode ser uma atitude um pouco excludente e elitista, mas essa foi a única maneira com a qual a gente conseguiu viabilizar esse seminário, e poder expandir um pouco mais, né, essas nossas redes, essas nossas trocas com pessoas tão especiais que a gente vem mantendo contato e colaborações internacionais, e que realmente são uma referência, né, no campo de conhecimento do evento. Bom, não vou me prolongar muito mais, já vou passar a palavra para a nossa palestrante, vou só apresentar ela primeiro, né, nós temos aqui, então, conosco a doutora Karen Wood, né. Thank you, Karen, for being here. I'm going to present you in Portuguese, and then I'm going to pass for you. A doutora Karen é bailarina, pesquisadora e educadora. Ela trabalha como pesquisadora associada no Center for Dance Research, CDAR, da Coventry University, no Reino Unido. O seu foco de pesquisa na área da fenomenologia, particularmente na área da percepção e da experiência corporificada, da tecnologia digital e da prática coreográfica. No seu trabalho de pesquisa artística estão incluídos projetos que contam com a colaboração de pesquisadores da área da neurociência, das artes visuais, da música e da iluminação. A doutora Karen coordenou 2 grandes projetos, né? Um projeto se chama, vou ler ele em português aqui, vou traduzir, é o AHRC, Diferença Invisível, Dança, Deficiência e Legislação, e também um outro grande projeto, que ela vai conversar um pouquinho conosco aqui, que é o projeto Holodance, que é o projeto de interação entre o corpo todo e aprendizagem em dança e educação. Ambos projetos com apoio financeiro de instituições muito importantes, tanto da Europa quanto da Inglaterra. Passo, então, a palavra à doutora Karen, né, que irá conversar conosco sobre a experiência corporificada em ambientes digitais. Karen, it's up to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Aline, and thank you for inviting me to be able to speak to everybody today and be part of this really great seminar series. So thank you very much. I'm Karen. I work as associate professor at the Centre for Dance Research in Coventry. I'm also associate director of Birmingham Dance Network, which is a small dance organisation based in Birmingham in the UK. I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you can all see what I share, and then I will start from here. So yeah, my seminar today is on dance, digital technology and understandings of our body. So my background is as a dance artist, an educator and a researcher. I've done my MSc at Laban in dance science, and I did my PhD in kinesthetic empathy and screen dance audiences, which was part of a bigger project called the Watching Dance Project, Kinesthetic Empathy. That was a while ago now at Manchester University. So my PhD was in arts and humanities, and my master's was in sciences. So I have this. I have a foot in both kind of disciplinary fields, if you like. So just a moment, we're going a bit. Let me just pause and go back. I'm going to start that again. Okay. So yes, and I work within a professional context as well as in an academic context. So I work between arts organisations and academia. The particular things I'm interested in doing the work that I do are things like collaboration, the body on screen and in digital spaces, and ethical practices. So particularly in artistic practice and in working conditions. And more recently, I've been doing some work in the working conditions of freelance dance artists. And this has been highlighted during the pandemic because they have been really severely affected within the pandemic due to work being taken away or cancelled. And so that's highlighted things for me that I have taken forward in a researchful way as well. So I come from a kind of somatic perspective, so a somatic practices perspective. And those of you that were at my seminar in 2019, when I had the privilege and pleasure to come to Porto Alegre and present and meet some wonderful people. So it was really great. And some of this will sound familiar because I've said some of this when I came over a couple of years ago, but it still grounds my seminar today, but also it gives you some kind of fundamental information about my practice. So I value the body awareness that somatic practices gives, and and how we are able to understand the body or soma and awareness. And there's just a quote there that is from a colleague of mine, Emma Meehan, from her book Performing Process, Sharing Dance and Choreographic Practice. So somatic practices helped give reflection of movement habits, opening up movement capacity, the development of subjective styles, and attention to multisensory rather than primarily visual attention to the body. So that draws really on the things that I'm interested in bringing out in my practice and the research that I do. And within somatic practices, perception is really important, and a kind of grounding principle or grounding concept, I suppose, within that. And perception, I'm talking here about how we process from the interior of the body, so proprioception and kinesthesia. I'm don't want to assume that everybody knows what proprioception is. So proprioception is the internal sensing of where our body parts are in space. So you can just try this with me if you like. If you put your arms out to the side with your fingers pointing out, and you can close your eyes. And if you try and get your fingers to meet overhead, I've got a sloping ceiling here, but if you try and get your fingers to meet overhead with your eyes closed, and see what happens, see where your fingers meet, then you are able to do that without looking because of your proprioceptive awareness. Now, dancers have quite a refined proprioception. So that's part of perception as well in proprioception. And then kinesthesia is another sensing of the body, but in relation to another body. So we can sense movement because of the environment around us. And you can think of that as when perhaps you're standing on a train or something, or you might be in a car and the car next to you moves and you can't always work out whether it's the car that's moved or whether it's you that's moved. That's an experience of kinesthesia. So it's an experience of something moving when you might not be moving. So those are the processes from the interior of the body, and then there's the processing from the external environment as well that feeds our perception. And John J. Gibson is a psychologist, and he theorized this as the ecological approach to visual perception. So he talks about how the external environment plays a key role in how we perceive. Alan Bertoz is a cognitive neuroscientist, and he says that perception comes down to nothing more than the construction of a visual, tactile representation, a multimodal representation, or even a supramodal representation in the mind of the perceiving subject. So we were able to imagine or perceive this representation that is visual, that is tactile, and that's what makes up our perception. So we, back in the 1990s now, mirror neurons were discovered in macaque monkeys, and since then there's been a development on the mirror neuron system. Now, the mirror neuron system plays a key role in our perception and the way that we experience things. So Emily Cross has called this mirror neuron system now the Action Observation Network. Patrick Haggard and Beatrice Calvo-Mourinho did a study using capoeira dancers and ballet dancers and looked at how our mirror neuron system, which is the sensory motor cortex, which is a strip over our heads here, how that fires more when we know a movement than if we don't know that movement. So if we have been trained in a particular style, we can notice a movement and that fires neurons in our brain, and they are more active if we already know what that movement is. So Emily Cross, now calling this the Action Observation Network, says this is the way we perceive others' action, and it is biased by our prior experience with an observed action. So that's building on what Calvo-Mourinho et al. Have discovered. So this is about the auditory, visual, motor experiences of actions. The more we use these three modalities to experience something, the greater the activation in the Action Observation Network. These might serve as an indicator of embodiment during action observation. So what do we mean by embodiment? And we'll go on to now have a look at that. So coming from the action observation network, we can then talk about kinesthesis. So we mentioned kinesthesia before. The word kinesthesis is derived from the Greek word kine, which means movement, and aesthesis, which is sensation. So put them together, movement, sensation. And this is closely linked with embodiment. And when I use the term embodied or embodiment, I mostly refer to the corporeal knowledge that we have that enables us to sensorially experience the world. So in other words, when we watch dance, we absorb information sensorially, and we make sense of this information from our cultural histories and our perceptive abilities. And that enables us to live this information through our body and through our consciousness. So combining kinesthesis with empathy, this concept emerges as an empathetic interaction between performer and observer that embodies aspects of the performer's movement. It could also be performer and performer, but there's this interaction, an empathetic interaction that happens with movement between people. Oops, this is jumping forward, but that's okay. So these give us a kind of theoretical framework, if you like, and some concepts that I've introduced that have been in my work and in my research, but have also underpinned the research projects that I have then been part of. And I'm going to introduce briefly one project that finished in 2015 called Holo Dance. And we were working with the dancing body in a digital space. So as an avatar and as a holographic projection. And you'll pick that up from the little video that I'm going to show you in a moment. And the Holo Dance project was quite a large project. It was funded by the H2020 European Commission. And there was 10 consortium partners. And we were made up of IT experts, computer scientists, dance experts, dance companies. So there was a real breadth to the skill set of the consortium. So some of the questions that we were looking at in particular were around the representation of the body as an avatar, the movement within the digital space, and kinesthesia. So how do we interpret, how do we experience seeing an avatar or ourselves as a holographic projection dancing within the space? So we had questions around how do avatars respond to idiosyncratic movements? So those are movements very personal to us. What types of avatar do we use? Is there a preference for avatars? And what's the tacit knowledge? So what's that corporeal knowledge that can be discovered or articulated from the use of avatars? So I will now hopefully show you a small video clip. Can everybody hear okay? Yeah?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Sorry, not quite sure what's going on there. Let's try again. Okay, so that was holo dance, and so you saw that the dancers, one of which was my dear colleague Rosa Cisneros, who worked on the project with myself, and Ruth Gibson for a short time, and Sarah Watley, and the dancers were in motion capture suits. And we gathered over 400 clips, actually, of ballet, Greek, folk dance, contemporary dance, and that's just escaped me. Ballet, Greek, contemporary,
Flamenco.
Flamenco, thank you, of course. I just mentioned Rosa. Gosh, I should know that, shouldn't I? Thank you very much. So we have this repository, we have this library of over 400 clips, which unfortunately isn't available to the public at the moment. But that feels like it's a really important piece of work that we need to continue trying to make it open at some point. And then from there, from having that repository, there was about 5 different digital tools that were made to help to look at how we could educate. So they were for learning to dance, learning technique, different ways of learning within the studio, but also to choreograph. So it was also aimed at students and professional choreographers. So those tools are still in prototype stage, and we are yet to see what happens with those. But that was the idea of the project, was to get this suite of tools to prototype stage within the 3 years that we did. And actually, I think we did more than what we said that we would achieve in the project. And it was great working with this big consortium. And it was very revealing about the body and how the body is placed, the dancing body, and what information that we can learn from these environments. And so on screen now are some exploratory questions that came out of that project. So we were looking at things like how dancers respond to the virtual and immersive environment, and that feedback information to the dancer about movement accuracy and different feeling states, as well as the metaphoric imagery that we use as a source for dancing anyway. You know, how do we respond to that? Then there was does inhabiting a virtual avatar or a projection space or holographic projection. So when you saw the dancer in that big headset, that's a VR headset. So does that elicit for the dancer a particular experience of being in the body, the dancer's own body, and the body of another? Because you could also be in the body, somebody else's body, as well as looking at your own body. And that was a really interesting place to be. And then the final question was, how might we provide new ways to learn and practice movement and perceive movement from the outside and inside simultaneously? And how does this open up new questions about embodiment? So what extra information does it give us about our own corporeal knowledge? Okay, so that's holo dance. I'm now going to go on to a recent project that I'm now working on. So this project is called Vibes. This project started last November, and it's for 2 years. It started a little late, like many things, because of the pandemic. But again, this is a European project, but it's a Creative Europe project. It's a different strand to the Horizon 2020, but we are working this time with a smaller group of partners. So we are working with Orb, who are in Paris. They're a digital creation company. We are working with Bassano del Grappo in Italy, and ICK in the Netherlands, and then there's CEDA at Coventry. And on the CEDA team, there's myself, Scott Della Hunter, Jonathan Burrows, and Rosemary Lee. And this Vibes is a choreographic and audio collective performance. So it's seeking to make groups of people who don't know each other meet in a shared performance space. So this really is about public choreography, and they're guided through headphones. And what we're doing is devising a protocol that will be played through an app to the public through their earphones. So they're designed by a choreographer or choreographic team without any limitation of motor skill, language, culture, or geographical distance. So the motivation for this project is to bring contemporary dance to new audiences and places, and that dance practice is developing and venues have never been so numerous in Europe. Well, we hope they remain that way. So I was just going to show you, I'll leave the website till later actually, and I'll show you another video now of what the beginnings of the Vibes project. But we do have a website if you want to check that out, as we do for Holo Dance as well. So I can give those website links if necessary. So let's just have a look at the Vibes.
Et on se prépare et puis on y va et on tire. On tire, ça traverse les genoux, le bassin, la colonne vertèbre par vertèbre, les épaules, ça se détend. Sens la chaleur, la texture, le grain de la peau, la forme des muscles, un bras, une épaule, avec une main, deux, un peu d'avant-bras.
Okay, so those two protocols that you saw there were made the year before the pandemic. So it's very different now in terms of contact and distance. So we are taking that into consideration with the protocol that we're devising. And we are right in the middle of doing that at the moment. And the things that we're really interested in is the deep choreographic thinking of how this kind of work is devised in large spaces with bigger groups of people, but also the relationships that happen between people. And to do that, we've been working with we had a workshop a couple of weeks ago where we worked with 6 dance artists. One of the key things for us as well, and it's actually a key thing for it's a key strand of work for CEDA, is about accessibility. So we want to make sure that this protocol is going to be accessible for as many people as possible. So let's just pause that one. So yeah, that's what we're working on at the moment. But again, this is a different way to work with technology. So we're thinking about in terms of the instruction, and how do we create moments where people can relate to one another and see each other and be able to feel that it's about the experience. So what's that experience that people will be able to have, but also really being very particular about the language that we use within that as well, so that we make sure that, as I said, is as accessible as possible. I'll just show you a quick video of a more recent protocol here. So Vibes will end up with 5 protocols, and the idea then is that these 5 protocols will be taught to international festivals, being festivals in Europe. So festivals that are outdoor, and they will then be able to the general public audiences will be able to experience any one of these protocols. Okay, let's just watch a more recent one.
I am Mujo. Let's play.
So this is the voice that you
enter
hear.
A sonic labyrinth. Pass the challenges to finish the game and to get a reward. I will guide you through it.
What we're going to be doing today is to create a sonic game, so that people, when they put their headphones, they are going to be going through a video game, but there's no screen, so your body is going to be the character. There's going to be obstacles, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be rewards. You are actually creating your character, and the machine, which is a phone, is going to be picking up from your movement. The phone tracks every single movement that we do. So the phone knows when we are front, back, side, how fast we move, when we stop, if you jump.
Turn left and keep moving. Let my singing voice guide you towards a direction.
For every movement, there's going to be a sound. So you actually become, as you move and progress in the game, part of the soundscape. If you're watching from outside, you cannot hear what they are hearing, but you will see a choreography.
Sorry, I don't.
How to utilize technology so that it actually helps your creativity, physical creativity, instead of diminishing it. And by creating an immersive experience, you liberate the body because you're being guided, and the only thing that you need to do is let yourself immerse in the soundscape that Michelle has created.
Move back and forth with the tempo of the sound and let your skin be the sound.
This has been an incredible creative journey of collaboration where we all have influenced each other, and the element that was missing is the people that do it, because they are essential. If we don't have the main character, we don't have any experience. So they are really the center of everything. We just created this so that they can really sink into the experience and enjoy it.
I think I might have missed a little bit in the middle, but sorry about that. I just wanted you to get an idea of the different protocols have got different themes as well, or they're different creations in themselves. So Jesus is about being in a game. So that one that you've just seen it's about being in a game. We are particularly interested in being in nature. So how do we connect people with nature? And at the moment, we feel that there's quite a disconnect there. So how can we encourage people to see what's around them and be in that experience of being within nature with people, and so as has a different kind of feel to it than that of a game, but hopefully at some point maybe you'll be able to experience it, so we'll see. But yes, at the moment we're still working with that. But the mobile phone and the app that Orb have created enables the sound interaction to happen. So the mobile phone knows if you turn left, if you turn right, if you're walking, if you're running, if you're jumping, and all that can create different interactions to happen. So we will see where we go with that. So that's Vibes, and that's ongoing until next year. This is just a couple of pictures from the workshop that we had with the dancers the other week, who really helped us to think more critically about what the purpose of the sound, the purpose of the voice giving the guidance, and also the different instructions and how we can think choreographically around what those instructions will be. Okay, so another project I'm involved in at the moment is called The Shape of Sound. So this is a fairly new project, and this is about working with an artist called Petra Johnson, and there's myself and Lily Hayward-Smith and Louisa Petts, who's a PGR student of mine, who we're involved as the performers in this project, but also in shaping what we do. The Petra is an artist who creates installations on the inner workings of the body. So this installation is being made thinking about the elements of the basilar membrane, which is in the cochlea of the inner ear, and the installation will create a space for people to engage with that. And it looks like this. So I'm going to just take you to the web page and you can hopefully see what it looks like. So here we have the installation. So this is we are producing a work in progress for the Being Human Festival, which is in Coventry in November, and these the strands that you can see hanging there are very fine silk and mohair, I think it is a combination of, that hang from a structure from the ceiling, and we're going to be interacting them. But those strands are actually representative of the hairs in the basilar membrane.
Karen?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think we can't see the website.
You can't see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you need to stop sharing the PowerPoint and then share the website.
Yeah, okay. Let's see if we can do that. Okay. Sorry, everyone. I won't be a moment. I'll just take you to this. So here's the image of the installation. So these are can you see that now? Is that okay?
Yeah, now you can see. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the installation of the strands of material, and that we will be interacting with, and this is a representation of the hairs in the basilar membrane. So let's just go back to the desk. PowerPoint. Okay. so this really is looking at how we can reconnect people to themselves and the roots of their ecological communality through the role of touch in hearing and the agency of vibrational matter. So through experiencing such primordial embodied technologies, which we have technology within us, which is that's how we're viewing the ear. Individuals may encounter the tendency of contemporary technological developments to distance human beings from their effective environment and the many natures they are by nature deeply connected to, but have subconsciously moved away from. So, yeah, I think that's the shape of sound. So for the moment, we are doing that as a work in progress and seeing where we go to, but there will be an option for people to do a workshop with us that will include playing with that installation and also Petra sculpts out of clay. So people are going to be able to make the 3 bones that make up the inner ear as well, so that there's some information about, that embodied technology, which is our ear, and how pressure and air affect the hairs of the basilar membrane. So that's all going to be experienced in a hands-on workshop as well. And I can't talk about the projects that I'm involved with without talking about Monica's project that I'm hopefully going to be able to work on, which is the digital archive of Eva Schul's work. So we're hoping to be able to get together before next April to be able to look at ways of working with and creating this digital dance archive and how we develop that and look at things like the embodied experience within that material and when it is recorded and archived as well. And then my final project that I wanted to talk about to you is about ethics and ethics in practice, and particularly ethics in practice when we are working in digital spaces. So this is a quotation from Vida Midgelow and Jane Bacon. They've got some very useful resources from a project that they did called Artistic Doctorates in Europe. And they mention ethics in that, and this says, and I'll just read this out for you for the moment. So ethics are also not something that are just attended once through an application procedure, which is that we have this application procedure in UK universities. Rather, ethics resonate deeply through artistic practice and require an attentive, responsive, and ongoing reflection and action as the researcher. The research, people, context, and communities change. So embracing ethics opens imaginative capacities and allows for empathetic engagements with a range of different perspectives. Developing such ethical awareness can enrich the researcher, and those which the work touches, enabling new insights and a more encompassing, generous practice to emerge. So both myself and Rosa Cisneros are ethics leads at the Centre for Dance Research, and we have a project which is called Ethics in Practice that's ongoing at the moment. And we are really keen to make sure we continually think about what ethics is and how it's informed, and through which best practice can develop, and we can continue to maintain and support. So one particular thing within ethics is consent. So formal consent, where we take part and we understand what's required and what our rights are and where that data is going to be stored. So I'm talking now particularly in terms of digital environments. Where is that data going to be stored? Because that's personal to the person who's giving that data. Nair et al. Argue that building relationships before gaining consent is actually really important. And that is particularly with artistic practice. I think we're quite, as artists, we're quite good at building and forming and building relationships and networks. So those things are important before we gain consent to do any researchful work. And informal consent is also very important. So David Carpenter says we should look for true respect. It can be a polite invitation, a call for challenge to formal consent in arts and humanities research, because David Carpenter thinks that formal consent gets in the way of relationships. So that's just both sides of the argument there. But in practice, participants might be co-researchers or they might be co-producers, and remembering that and respecting that is actually will go a long way. So yeah, I said we're currently conducting a small study on ethics and equity in practice, and we're speaking to artists who are both within academia and a professional context, and that includes PGRs and research staff. So we are at the moment going to be summarising a survey of 20 people that went out, so that we can start to formulate our further research on ethics in practice. So what are the considerations for artistic practice when we work in this digital environment? So again, two of my colleagues here, Hetty Blaze and Sarah Watley, they have written about dance in the digital environment, and they say that this is not to say that the live dancing body is abandoned in these contexts, but rather it participates in what might invite a reconfiguring of the human body, or more particularly provides access to new information about the human body that is otherwise inaccessible. And digital technology can there's a desire to unearth more of the hidden aspect of the dance, such as the dynamic, relational and co-creative aspects of dance creation. So there are ways that technological devices establish new relationships with the body, and that's something that Isabel Choynier and colleagues write about. But there's this ecosystem that involves the technology, the moving body and the data. And those are the three key areas to consider when we're working with the dancing body in these digital spaces. So it can create new experiences, new sensations, new perceptions, all of which that I have witnessed within the projects that I've done, and what are the ethical ways that then we support and we care for these situations. So there's some questions that have arisen for me around the digital space. So things around what the artist is doing, what's the relationship with the work and the team, what are the mechanisms that are in place to check on this ecosystem of the technology, the body, and this space, as I mentioned on the last slide, and then the data, whose is it, how is it protected, what's the consideration for artists' rights and royalties, and what formal and informal agreements have taken place. Because, you know, technology now is obviously very prominent in places, and there's a slow catching up of what it means in terms of data and the storage of that data. So I also suggest some considerations in terms of what's the communication between the team, the artistic team who's working on any project, and what are the check-ins that happen to make sure that everybody's okay and that things are going as set out, as initiated, what agreements have been negotiated. Considering this ecosystem that happens and that it does take us into new places, or it can do. The protection of material and data is really important, and being clear from the outset who has ownership over that as well. And then the dissemination. So the dissemination of that data, has that been discussed and talked about and considered in terms of where it's going and whose it is, and the care and responsibility about how we do that. And this was just some words that came out of the survey that both myself and Rosa have done around ethics and equity in practice. So responsibility, protection, participation, all of the things that I think can sometimes be heightened when you're working in a digital space, because it's such an unknown space, and we haven't spent long enough there, even though, you know, things have been around for 30 odd years. We're still finding out what those things are that we need to put in place. What are those guidelines? Okay, so I think I will just summarize there. So I've discussed some theoretical concepts at the beginning that underpin the projects I've been involved with. I've discussed some a past project and some present projects, and how ethics is a key consideration in the practice as well. And finally, just some questions and considerations when working in digital environments. So ethics is meant to be enabling as well, and not restraining. So it's really coming from a place of care and responsibility when we're working in these environments. There's some other projects that are happening at CDARE. If you have a look on CDARE's website, you will see some other projects. These also involve work with the dancing body and digital spaces. And those are references. And thank you very much. I think I can stop sharing my screen there and return to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to hear you and these amazing projects, and hopefully you would be able to be with us in Brazil soon.
Well, let's see what COVID brings, but we hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I'm going to stop the transmission now in YouTube. Gente, obrigada quem esteve conosco, quem pode nos assistir. Foi um prazer ter a Karen aqui. E na semana que vem, não esqueçam que a gente vai continuar com o evento, né, nossa última palestra, com mais 2 convidados. Então, seguimos em frente aí, já finalizando o nosso seminário. Obrigada e um bom dia a todos.